Another big news has hit the finance world. Banks are no longer just cutting salaries, they're laying people off. There's a rumor going around that Ping An Bank is doing layoffs in a sneaky way by relocating employees to Shenzhen. Some employees in Shanghai have shared that Ping An Bank is offering two options: either move to Shenzhen with a 2-year housing allowance of 3,000 yuan per month, along with a one-time relocation bonus of 5,000 yuan, which is a total of 77,000 yuan in support, plus reimbursement for 12 round-trip flights. Or, if they don't relocate at all, they have to leave by the end of the month. If they comply, they'll get severance pay, plus an extra 3 months of salary. If they resist, they'll only get the base severance package. This news has been buzzing online, and Ping An Bank responded that these claims are false. However, Ping An employees revealed that layoffs have been happening since 2021, with high-paid employees being the first to go, regardless of their role, whether it's tech, product, or sales. Especially since the new president took office last year, they've made drastic changes, even eliminating a business division that has been around for a decade. 11 departments at the headquarters were cut, so the news from Shanghai isn't really surprising. Pay cuts in May, sneaky layoffs in July. It's clear that making money in banks has become tough. This woman used Ping An Bank as an example to reveal the wave of layoffs happening across China's banking industry, revealing the struggles the banking sector is facing amid economic downturns. Layoffs have become a widespread trend, but for the employees being laid off, whether they relocate or leave the company, they face both mental and financial pressure.
Banks are cutting salaries too, so that golden job has turned into a bronze one, huh? Since the start of the year, teachers are losing jobs, the real estate industry is collapsing, one company after another, and now even the banks, which are closest to the money, are collectively slashing pay. To put it bluntly, joining a bank now is like getting into a state-owned company in 1993, buying stocks in 2008, buying a house in 2019, or starting a restaurant business in 2023. Basically, you're jumping into a fire pit. You have to understand, a decade ago, working in a bank was more desirable than being a civil servant. When you went on a date, your future mother-in-law would meet you at the village entrance. Now things have changed. Your salary is being clawed back, and even cab fare from 3 years ago has to be returned. Basic monthly pay is dropping by 5,000 to 10,000 yuan, and annual bonuses are being slashed significantly. Young people are even facing layoffs. If you ask me, working at a bank isn't as great as you all think. They have to bring in deposits, sell financial products, issue loans, open corporate accounts, issue credit cards, and even deal with insurance and funds. Their workload is heavy. Young people working in banks are even nicknamed Miss Million and Mr. 10 Million, based on the size of the tasks they're assigned. But to be fair, even with the pay cuts, the salary is still better than in many other industries. The important thing to remember is that the so-called iron rice bowl isn't about staying in one job for life. It's about having work to do, wherever you go, for life.
This man compared today's banking jobs to the stable careers of the past, pointing out that working at a bank no longer carries the same prestige and security. Banks are now under the dual pressure of salary cuts and layoffs. In the past, banking jobs were seen as stable and well-paid. But with rising pressures within and outside the industry, this view has changed. The reductions in pay, benefits, and workforce make banking less attractive than it once was.
The day before yesterday, I met a friend who has been working at Ma-An Bank for about 2 years. Last month, he only received a little over 800 yuan as his salary. He told me this has been the case for several months now. That's why I said last year, everyone really needs to control their spending for the next couple of years. People's incomes have really dropped. This is because commercial banks are cutting salaries and performance bonuses, or even clawing back previous bonuses. The main reason behind all this is that banks are making less money, which is why interest rates have dropped, leading to layoffs and pay cuts.
This man shared how his friend's salary was drastically reduced to just over 800 yuan, which reflects the widespread decline in pay within the banking industry. In recent years, many banks have implemented salary cuts to cope with economic pressures and declining profits. This not only affects employees' quality of life, but also highlights the shrinking revenue across the industry. However, salary reductions are often part of a broader strategy when banks decide to downsize their workforce. Under the dual pressures of China's economic downturn and business challenges, the once highly regarded iron rice bowl of the Chinese banking industry is now facing a tough reality of salary cuts and layoffs. According to a report from Mainland Finance Association on August 20th, several banks, including Nanjing Bank, An Bank, Shanghai Pudong Development Bank, and the Shanghai Rural Commercial Bank, have released their 2024 half-year reports. Data from East Money Choice shows that these four banks have collectively laid off 4,116 employees in the first half of this year. Among the listed banks that have released their half-year reports, only Jiangsu Bank has seen a slight increase in employees, adding 28 people. Among these, Ping An Bank stands out for its significant layoffs. Data shows that Ping An Bank's total workforce dropped from 43,119 employees at the end of 2023 to 40,830 currently, a reduction of 2,289 people. SPDB's workforce decreased from 63,582 employees at the end of 2023 to 61,892 in the first half of 24, a reduction of 1,690 people. The Shanghai Rural Commercial Bank reduced its workforce by 55 people, from 11,295 to 11,240. Before Ping An Bank's layoffs, there was also news about salary cuts at China Construction Bank, one of China's four major state-owned commercial banks. According to a report from Daily Economic News, on July 4th, news of a 10% pay cut at the headquarters of China Construction Bank stirred up discussions in the market. Sources within the bank revealed that the bank is undergoing comprehensive salary adjustment, affecting not only the functional departments at the headquarters, but also extending to the bank's subsidiaries. The average salary cut for headquarters employees was slightly more than 10%, with higher-level employees facing bigger reductions. Subsidiary salary cuts varied depending on the department. The news of salary cuts is not the first of its kind. Back in May of this year, media reports indicated that several Ping An Bank employees mentioned that both they and their departments experienced varied degrees of performance bonus cuts, with some departments seeing cuts as steep as 40%. Do you know how tough things are for frontline bank employees right now? It's nothing like the high salaries we used to think. A few days ago, I had a meal with a friend who works at a bank. He told me that for the first few months, his average monthly salary had been just 2,000 or 3,000 yuan, which is nowhere near enough to cover living expenses. As economic pressure and competition within the industry intensify, many banks have chosen to cut costs, including reducing employee salaries. In many cities, the cost of living is continuously rising, especially in housing and daily expenses, making a monthly salary of 2,000 to 3,000 yuan barely enough to meet basic living standards. This mismatch between income and expenses is deepening the struggle of employees. Are salary cuts in banks really this bad? Let's take a look at the report from Jinqiao Bank. They said the situation has become very serious. Last month, when Jinqiao Bank announced pay cuts at the headquarters, I knew things were going downhill. When higher-ups' benefits get frozen, frontline employees don't just face salary caps, they're being sacrificed. Sure enough, the June performance review for the top branch in the central province came in. According to the evaluation plan from the beginning of the year, the branch should have received 80,000 yuan for June. In reality, they got only 8,000. That's 10 employees sharing 8,000 yuan, just a few hundred each. Headquarters took a 10% cut, but by the time it filtered down to the front line, it had shrunk to just 10% of what it should be. This job is becoming impossible to keep up with. Many of the energetic and capable employees from the 70s are now disheartened. Some are taking sick leave, some are going on extended holidays. It's over. Let's look at another complaint from Jinqiao Bank. One manager said, "I'm from Jiangsu's Jinqiao Bank, and recently we started a joint project where employees are forced to make 50 calls a day, bringing in at least 1 million yuan in outside funds. If we can't reach the target, we have to work an extra hour. These overwhelming tasks are suffocating. I'm at my breaking point every day, and I don't even know if I should keep going." This woman highlights the severe challenges facing the banking industry, particularly the extreme measures taken regarding salary cuts and performance incentives. Using Jinqiao Bank as an example, these instances illustrate the uneven distribution of pay between different levels and the harsh performance evaluations that frontline employees endure. These issues are closely related to the wave of layoffs in the banking sector and reflect the widespread difficulties the industry is currently facing. According to reports from Mainland Finance Association, a client manager, second-tier city at China Construction Bank stated that this year's pay exceed 10% and performance pressure is immense. A source from China Construction Bank's headquarters mentioned to Jiemian News that salaries in their department started decreasing last year, which can be seen in the public financial reports. Not only China Construction Bank, but also other financial companies are facing salary cuts. According to an August 21st report from Jiemian News, several major securities firms' investment banking divisions have recently reported salary cuts. An employee from a large Shanghai-based securities firm mentioned that within this month, their company adjusted salaries within the investment banking division, and last year's annual bonuses have yet to be paid. The industry-wide salary reductions have created pessimism about future pay. Another employee from a top securities firm revealed that after the recent pay cuts, take-home salaries have decreased by 50%, with some falling below 10,000 yuan. These cuts have primarily affected VP-level employees and below, but so far they haven't impacted the bond department, only the equity business. Reports indicate that across the industry, IPO activity has slowed down this year, putting immense pressure on investment banking businesses. Many securities firms have already reduced salaries in their investment banking divisions, with some even withholding last year's bonuses. An equity capital markets employee from a leading securities firm in North China said, "Last week, my monthly salary was reduced to the level I was making 10 years ago when I first joined the company. Some of my peers have seen cuts around 70%. Beyond top-tier securities firms, mid-tier firms are also experiencing salary reductions. An employee from a mid-tier securities firm in East China noted, "I've worked here for 3 years and recently received less than 6,000 yuan for my latest paycheck. Even last year's bonus hasn't been paid. In my department, someone who holds all 3 certifications has already successfully transitioned to becoming board secretary, and I'm preparing to take the civil service exam myself." A seasoned financial headhunter observed that salary cuts in the investment banking departments of security firms began when IPO approvals tightened. Many firms have since adjusted salaries. He estimates that salary reductions across the industry vary widely depending on the company and level, with the average salary cut likely around 30%. In the middle of last year, there were reports of salary cuts at a state-backed securities firm. According to the plan, fixed monthly salaries for mid- and low-level employees in the investment banking division were reduced by 5,000 to 10,000 yuan, depending on their rank. At the beginning of this year, an investment banker from a small to medium-sized security firm in South China mentioned that their investment banking division suffered losses in the tens of millions of yuan in 2023. As a result, they were planning to cut costs by implementing salary reductions. With stricter regulations and a slowdown in IPOs, the era of million yuan per person salaries in securities firms has come to an end. Data from East Money Choice shows that among 51 listed security firms, 5 saw a decrease of over 10% in their average employee salaries in 2023, including Tianfeng Securities, CICC, Zhongyuan Securities, Dongxing Securities, and Guotai Junnan Securities. Tianfeng Securities had the largest drop, with average salaries decreasing by 14.77%, followed by CICC with a 14.54% reduction. Even the top dog, CITIC Securities, saw its average salary per employee fall to less than 800,000 yuan. Industry insiders point out that salary cuts are a necessary cost-cutting measure for securities firms facing the winter of the industry. Professor Tianli Hui, head of the Financial Development Research Institute at Nankai University, explained that due to the volatility and downturn in the capital markets, the securities industry's overall performance was under pressure last year, directly impacting employee bonuses. At the same time, regulatory authorities tightened their grip on salary structures to prevent excessive incentives and risk accumulation, resulting in policy-driven salary reductions. CICC used to be a symbol of high pay. Data from Wind shows that in 2021, the average compensation at CICC was around 1.16 million yuan, with actual payouts averaging 939,000 yuan per employee. By 2022, that dropped to 819,000 yuan, and in 2023, it further declined to just 700,000 yuan. Entering 2024, the downward trend hasn't slowed. According to their Q1 report, the average payable salary was about 105,000 yuan for the quarter, translating to a monthly salary of 35,000 yuan, a significant year-on-year drop. In comparison, CICC's average payable salary in Q1 2020 was 296,000 yuan, with monthly salaries nearing 100,000 yuan. In just 4 years, this represents a 65% cumulative decline. Earlier, Yi Cai reported on April 11th, citing Wind data, that in 2023, the average pay cut for management at China's banks was 13%, with some senior executives facing reductions as high as 40%. Economic Observer reported on May 11th that several investment bankers revealed that CITIC Securities, CICC, and CITIC Construction Investment have all recently adjusted salaries and positions. CITIC Securities reduced salaries by around 20%, CICC's highest reduction was 25%, and CITIC Construction Investment planned further reductions after cutting about 20% at the beginning of the year. A banking analyst mentioned that salary cuts are closely linked to rising operational pressures faced by the entire banking industry in recent years. With profit growth slowing down, banks are actively seeking to cut costs and improve efficiency.
Today, I officially left the bank. I've worked in banking for over 10 years. I started in 2012, becoming what people call a financial migrant worker, struggling in this industry for so many years. I went from being a corporate client manager to working in the back-end audit department, then to the inclusive financial department as a business support officer. Eventually, after going through several roles, I ended up back at the branch as a customer manager for inclusive finance, dealing with loans for business owners. Over these 10 years, I've witnessed how glorious the banking industry once was, when business was booming and there was nothing to worry about. But now, I'm seeing it go downhill. This year, I've been earning a monthly salary of just 3,000 or 4,000 yuan, and some of my colleagues are making even less. I'm sure many of you think that bankers make more than this, but let me tell you, the industry isn't as glamorous as it seems.
Despite working in banking for many years, this man's salary is no longer enough to meet his needs. The downward economic environment has added to the pressure on banks, often leading to layoffs and pay cuts. While banking was once considered a stable and high-paying career choice, the reality now is that the industry is struggling, and those once coveted positions no longer seem as attractive. In addition to salary reductions, banks have established mechanisms for deferred payments and clawbacks of performance bonuses, with the latter being known as reverse salary recovery. Earlier, Yi Cai reported that reverse salary recovery is being implemented by banks in cases where employees commit violations, engage in misconduct, or cause financial losses during their employment. More than 95% of China's banks have already implemented this system. The scope of reverse salary recovery has been expanding. In 2023 alone, 11 listed banks, including China Merchants Bank, Bank of China, Bohai Bank, Harbin Bank, and Tianjin Bank, disclosed the amounts they had reclaimed in their annual reports. The largest recovery came from China Merchants Bank, which clawed back 43.3 million yuan from 4,415 employees. Author Wang He previously commented to NTD Television, "In the past, banks had it easy. Earning money was almost effortless, but in recent years, with China's economy performing poorly, banks have struggled. Loans issued by banks now carry significant risk, so reclaiming performance bonuses is a necessary internal control measure, one that is being widely enforced across all banks." Taiwanese financial expert Huang Shicong noted that under CCP regulations, more financial institutions, including banks, are likely to ramp up their efforts in clawing back salaries, further highlighting the lack of security for personal property in China. In China, banks have traditionally been regarded as offering high salaries and great benefits, but in recent years, Banks have frequently announced salary caps, cuts, and reversals. Many banks have also been unable to maintain operations, leading to mergers and restructurings. According to Dahe Financial Cube in Henan Daily, on July 5th, over 80 small and medium-sized banks in China underwent mergers and restructurings in the first half of this year alone. In June, over 40 banks received approval for mergers and restructurings. The CCP's central bank released its 2023 Financial Stability Report, which showed that the number of high-risk banks had reached 337, with total assets amounting to 6.6 trillion yuan, all of which were small and medium-sized banks. According to incomplete statistics from the National Financial Regulation Administration, as of July 25th this year, nearly 1,500 bank branches have closed, including branches from state-owned banks, city commercial banks, and rural commercial banks. In 2023 and 2022 alone, 2,756 and 2,383 commercial bank branches, respectively, were shut down across China. Due to frequent falsification of data by the CCP, external observers believe the actual situation is likely far worse than what the government reports. Xie Tian, a professor at the University of South Carolina, stated that the closure of so many banks is a very serious issue. The obvious reason is the severe recession of China's economy, with decreased financing and financial activities among real businesses, leading to reduced bank profits, a rise in bad debts, abnormal cash flow, and even severe losses due to a lack of liquidity. Xie believes that neither the original drivers of China's economic growth nor the so-called new quality productivity seem able to effectively stimulate the economy. Thus, China's economic recession may continue for a period of time, and more banks could face the same risk of collapse. The wave of salary cuts across China's banking industry has now spread to other sectors. Recently, high-level executives at listed companies have even begun voluntarily giving up their pay for the next 6 months. According to Radio Free Asia, on August 21st, Shenzhen's Mingli Da Precision Technology Company Limited issued an announcement on August 20th, revealing that the company's general manager, Tao Cheng, and deputy general manager, Zhang Xianming, had notified the board that, given the complex and changing international landscape and the destocking policies of key overseas clients, the company was facing unprecedented challenges. To help the company through this crisis, they voluntarily gave up their salaries from July 1st to December 31st of this year. Tao Cheng is forfeiting 480,000 yuan in basic salary, and Zhang Xianming is giving up 360,000 yuan. Their performance bonuses will also be recalculated, with the hope that this gesture will boost the confidence of employees and investors. Mingli Da specializes in precision structural components and mold design, with key business areas including photovoltaics, energy storage, and new energy vehicles. In the company's first quarter results this year, revenue fell by 42.8% year-on-year, largely due to reduced demand from overseas clients, which led to a shift from profit to loss and significant pressure on the company's stock price, which has dropped by 51.6% since the beginning of the year. The trend of executives at publicly listed companies voluntarily cutting or giving up their salaries has become more common. For example, Yejian Technologies chairman Ye Qi applied to the board to stop receiving his personal salary until the stock price recovers after consecutive declines. Haineng Technology recently announced that its general manager's target annual salary would be reduced by more than 30%. Nanwei Software also implemented partial pay cuts, starting with its management team. Some netizens have described this trend as a growing movement. Current affairs commentator Fang Yuan noted that the practice of executives tightening their belts has spread from real estate companies to various sectors, showing how severe China's economic downturn is. Listed companies across different industries are seeing worsening operational conditions. Executives cutting or giving up their salaries is a symbolic gesture of solidarity through tough times and an acknowledgement of poor performance, but this action is unlikely to reverse their company's struggles. During economic downturns, this is a common phenomenon. However, such gestures are unlikely to change a company's fortunes. The true improvement in business conditions comes from better operations, not from a leader's symbolic salary sacrifice. This is merely a temporary measure, and regardless of how much a general manager cuts their salary, it won't have a substantial impact on the company's operational health. Fang Yuan added that with no significant improvement in the broader economic environment, it's only a matter of time before more corporate executives are forced to cut or give up their salaries, and this trend is likely to become increasingly common in the second half of the year.